Of all the chords that aren't chords, power chords are my favorite chords. That sentence didn't make any sense, but it's true. To technically be a chord, by definition, you have to have 3 separate notes. A power chord, as you may know, is only 2 notes. So we're going to talk about what makes a power chord and different substitutions that you can use instead of power chords so you're not just playing them all the time. So what is it? Well, technically it's a 1 and a 5. Now let me explain what that means. Let's take the 5th fret on the E string. This is an A note. I'm going to play the A major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Now I'm going to play the A minor scale. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Now if you notice, if we counted all those out, if we go from the 1 to the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 1 is A and the 5 is E in the minor scale. If we do it in the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 1 is A and the 5 is E. So a power chord is a 1 and a 5 played together. Now, the great thing about it is neither major nor minor, because what makes a chord major or minor is the third. 1, 2, 3, in the minor scale, there's the third, it would be a C. In the major scale, the third would be a C sharp. So what's really helpful about power chords is you don't have to know anything about music theory. You don't really even need to know what key you're in to use them, because whether it's major or minor is inconsequential as far as the chord is concerned. So most of you probably already know this shape right here with the 1 and the 5. Now you can add your pinky right behind it to add the 8. Okay, now on both scales, that 8 is also the same because it's an octave of the first note. So I'm having an A, an E, and another A. We can have as many A's and E's as we want combined, and that's still going to be a power chord. And you may see this on tablature or notated in a way that says A5. That's what this means, an A and it's 5th, right? A5, 1, 5. Same as this is A sharp, B, so on and so forth, right? So let's talk about an inversion that you can use for a power chord as a replacement or a substitute. Now, an inversion is just any chord where the root note isn't the first note that you play. So let's move down a string and let's do an E power chord, right? So this is rooted on the 7th fret of the A string, and then I have my 5 right here, which is a B. E, F, G, A, B. So an E plus a B make a power chord, right? Now, an inversion of this would be putting the B first. So instead of having the B here, we're going to octave down and play the B on the low E string, which is the 7th fret. So instead of playing this chord as an E power chord, we're playing this chord. And it gives you like a lower, thicker sound, right? So anytime you want a root here, you can just think of having the root beneath the 5, and that's an inversion of a power chord. Now, if everything you're playing is power chords, your playing might sound a little stale. So here's something that we can substitute with that's just as easy, if not easier than chords, but we're still going to use a little bit of music theory to make different shapes, okay? So we're going to keep that same root note, the 5th fret, the A, right? So, as we said before, this is just an A5, an A power chord. It's neither major nor minor. Now, we can make it major or minor by taking the 5 and changing it to a third. As far as a chord is concerned, the only difference between a major chord and minor chord is the third. The major chord has the 3 in it, right? 1, 2, 3. So an A and a C sharp is a major chord. A minor chord has a flat third, a flat 3. So instead of C sharp, it would be C. Now here's 1, 2, 3. So there's the C. We can't play them both at the same time because they're on the same string. So we're going to move this C to the A string right here. So our substitution that you can use for an A power chord is if you're doing a major one, you could just do this. Middle finger, 5E, pointer finger, 4A. And this is a movable shape, just like anything else, as long as you just play these 2 strings. Now, you already know this shape because you probably have played a G major chord. So if you just stopped it short at just these 2, you have a movable shape. So just by flattening the third, going back a fret, and now you probably want to use a different finger, like this. Now you can make a minor chord. And again, kind of like we said before, a chord has to be at least 3 notes. So this is just 2 notes. Why is it minor? Because the 5th is implied. The 5th is what's called a perfect interval because it's the same in both scales. So we have a 1 and a minor third. The 5th is being implied, but we're still kind of calling it a chord, even though technically it doesn't satisfy the definition of that. So how is this useful to you? Well, if you're playing an electric guitar through maybe like a practice amp or a cheaper amp or something like that, and you use open chords that you might use on an acoustic guitar. Let's do a progression like E minor, G major, C major, and A minor. And you just play them like an acoustic guitar. It doesn't really sound great. It sounds kind of messy. There's a lot of frequencies competing for each other. The open strings on a distorted, amplified electric guitar don't really have the same effect as an acoustic guitar would. So to kind of tighten up that sound, we're going to replace these chords, right? So we're going to start with this E minor, and we're going to do the replacement voicing that we talked about right here. So the E on the A string is the 7th fret, right? So we're going to root on the 7th fret and do the flat third. We're going to add that flat third to make it minor. So instead of E minor, we have E minor here, right? And the progression went from an E minor to a G major. So let's do the same thing. We could take this G major just right here. We could go from E minor to G major, but I wanted to add a higher one, right? So let's take the major voicing and root it on the 10th fret of the A string, which is a G, right? So we're gonna go from E minor to G major, and then we went to a C major before in the open chord way. Now, since we're in this G major right here, we're really close to a traditional power chord rooted on a C, which is the 8th fret of the E string. So all we have to do is jump back to a regular power chord there. And then we're gonna finish it off by doing an A minor chord with that minor third voicing rooted on the octave A of the A string right here, so the 12th fret. So instead of, and that sounds a lot cleaner on a distorted electric guitar than. Now, another way you can use this is if you're in a band with maybe 2 guitar players and one of them is playing open chords, you can just use this to tighten up the sound where you're not both playing the same thing, and then you have to be in like perfect rhythm to get it to sound decent at all. So there's just different ideas that you can use when you're playing a song. Also too, if maybe it's the same chord progression over and over again and you want to make it sound different, even if you're playing an acoustic guitar, you can play the power chord voicings for a more low-key part of the song because you're only playing 2 notes at a time, so it's not going to be as loud. Like you could go from the E minor here, or even play it like 1 string at a time, kind of like a riff, into the bigger chords, right? So there's just different things that you can think about for substituting in different shapes to get the same effect, and they're just as easy because it's still just a 2-note chord, just 2 fingers that are pretty close to each other. So, to review, we've got a power chord, and let's just do them all on this E, so 7A. So we have the traditional power chord, we have the inversion, we have the major version, and the minor version. There you go.